Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live stream here this afternoon. My name is meteorologist Joe Pisani. Great to have you guys on the broadcast with us. We've got some new info on Milton as of the 2 p.m. advisory, which came out a little over an hour ago. Milton is now officially a hurricane, Category 1 hurricane, and winds are rapidly intensifying. So let's jump right in to kind of what we're seeing here with Milton. And this is kind of where we're at. So we've got 3 hurricanes in the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico here, as you can see on this map. We still have got Kirk and Leslie, but now we have a new one. This is our 3rd one. This is Milton, and right now winds of 80 miles per hour here for Hurricane Milton. It is moving off to the east at 6 miles per hour. So the speed since yesterday has started to increase, which we were expecting here with Milton. Pressure down to 988 millibars, and we're really expecting that rapid intensification for Milton to really begin late tonight and then through the day tomorrow. So taking a look here at our forecast cone, you can see here it is expected to continue to be a hurricane, and then sometime tomorrow we're expecting it to become a major hurricane. So we're going to see this rapid intensification period over the next 24 to 48 hours here with Milton. And we really, let me make this full screen here for you. We really could see it even become a major hurricane, I would say, and probably within about 36 hours, probably by tomorrow afternoon at this time. I think it will potentially be a major hurricane tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. Definitely here you see 7 a.m. Tuesday, major hurricane, and then by Tuesday evening really starts kind of making that northeastward turn there Tuesday into Wednesday. And then 7 a.m. Wednesday, it is here off of the coast of Florida, about to make impact probably Wednesday afternoon, late Wednesday afternoon through Wednesday evening, then moving across Florida. And then by Thursday morning, it's already well out to sea here, 7 a.m. Thursday. So probably be making its exit over Florida, probably around midnight or so, is kind of what we're thinking here. So, but we're expecting this to get up to a still Category 3, 125 mile per hour. So getting more to a high-end Category 3 storm with this by Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, another thing that we need to keep in mind is the arrival time of these winds. And we can see here that we're expecting these winds really to begin across much of Florida by Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock. Even in some places, we could start seeing, especially across the Florida Keys, we could start feeling those winds by Tuesday morning into Tuesday afternoon. So Florida Keys need to be prepared for that. Another interesting note here with Milton, and this is something that the National Hurricane Center was discussing, is the track has slightly shifted south, because really in the last few hours we've actually seen Milton taking a bit of a more east-southeast little bit of a shift earlier, and but we're really seeing this flare up of convection here on the northern side of well, it's Kirk. Let's get to the right storm. Here we go. Milton. Yeah, it really, you can see here this flare up on the northern side. It actually is starting to develop that eye right there around the center of the storm. And National Hurricane Center had kind of made this observation that the storm has actually basically been moving today kind of off to the east-southeast, actually kind of drifting a little bit more southeast than it is expected to basically go eastward. That is why the tropical storm warnings have been issued for the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. And we could be seeing hurricane watches and warnings for Milton start going up across portions of the west coast of Florida as early as this evening, potentially even. We'll have to keep an eye, see if they put anything out for the 5 p.m. advisory. I don't think they will for the 5 p.m., but I definitely think by this evening we'll start seeing some of those watches going up for portions of the west coast of Florida. So that is definitely something we are going to have to keep our eye on these next really 24 hours. And if you're just joining the live stream, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for me on the YouTube and like and share the video. That way others will be able to see it as well. So this is what we're looking at. This is the current latest infrared imagery here of Hurricane Milton. And I want to change this real quick. Let's take a look at I want to show you the water vapor imagery on this. Oh, let's go to the 6.9 micron. Here we go. On this, it's a little bit harder to see. Let's go over to the GOES 16 on Milton. And let's come to... let's go to sub-regional. Here we go. I'll throw this in motion for you guys. And this is what we're talking about. You can kind of see a little bit of this ice starting to try and develop here on the infrared satellite imagery this afternoon. And really also seeing this big burst of thunderstorm convection right here on the northern side of that eye wall as well. And you can see a lot of just deep moist air here with Milton, and we're all starting to see this fanning pattern spreading out on the northern side, especially the northeastern side. So it's definitely growing in size. Now, that is also something to note, the difference here. There's going to be a lot of comparisons, I know, because we just went through Helene. So comparing Milton to Helene, Milton is a much smaller storm right now, and it is expected to stay that way as it undergoes this rapid intensification phase. Really over the next day, day and a half, we're going to see the size of the storm remain relatively small. Now, as it approaches Florida, a lot of the models are showing that Milton is potentially going to be undergoing some weakening. And if that occurs, we could actually see Milton slightly grow in size as it approaches the west coast of Florida. Again, I don't think it's going to be, 800 miles like what we saw with Helene, but we could see that wind shear kind of cause it to disrupt it and kind of spread it out a little bit there as well. But right now, pretty small compact storm. Again, if you're just joining us, this is now Hurricane Milton that we're looking at. It was a tropical storm, but as of the 2 p.m. advisory, it is now officially a hurricane. Wind sustained 80 miles per hour here with Milton, and we are expecting this to rapidly increase as it moves off to the east, and then eventually the east, northeast, and then kind of more toward the northeast. Now, let's kind of come back here to our track here that we're looking at, and kind of zoom in here a little bit on it. So you can see here, this is where it currently is, and you'll notice this first dot is kind of off to the east-southeast. That's because of that motion that we've been seeing really the last 6-12 hours, where it's kind of drifting a little bit more to the southeast, and then we're going to see it kind of pick up with that zonal flow and move more easterly and become a major hurricane, and then we'll start seeing it move east northeasterly and then more northeasterly as it gets closer to the coast. But this is still a huge concern, really, all the way through the entire west coast of Florida, really from Cedar Key all the way down to the Florida Keys. From Key to Keys, with this, we are seeing with that southern shift, it would bring it in potentially just south of Tampa and Tampa Bay. But regardless of that, it'll still be on the north side, so you would still have those south to southeasterly almost ahead of the storm, pushing in all that storm surge right into the Tampa Bay region. So even if Tampa per se is not, Milton doesn't come in north, the angle is still going to be significant for the Tampa Bay region. We would also see a significant storm surge, even all the way down to places like Fort Myers and Punta Gorda, Cape Coral, even down toward Naples, Florida, could be seeing some significant storm surge from Milton. And speaking of storm surge, let's kind of take a look here at this storm surge inundation map that we're talking about to just kind of give you guys an idea. We're going to kind of start from south and work our way north. So this here is Naples that you can see. Here's Alligator Alley that kind of comes across. And just so you're familiar with the shading, greater than 1 foot is the blue shading. Greater than 3 feet is the yellow shading. The orange shading here is greater than 6 feet above ground. And then the red shading would be greater than 9 feet above ground. And so this is, again, we're talking, a lot of these places here, even down toward the Naples area, 6 to 9 feet right here on some of these outside islands. Berkshire Lakes, even a foot. And then here right around the Naples area, we're looking 3 to 6 feet depending on the area. Here along the coast, a good area of that 3 to 6 range. And then as we get up here toward, this is getting up toward Fort Myers Beach area. Again, look at all this red in here. This is greater than 9 feet. Potential storm surge flooding that we're looking at here. So very concerning for this region as far as the potential for the storm surge flooding. So you can see here some of these roads, 876 and 39 kind of coming down toward the coast. Fort Myers, right there on the beach, a lot of 6 to 9. On the south side of Cape Coral, we'd be looking at closer to the 3 foot range, 3 to 6, somewhere in there. And then as we can kind of continue up here, this is the Punta Gorda area, really 3 to 6, some places up to 9 as well here. Northport, really more 1 to 3. Because the angle, you can see the more intensity here on the east side there of the Punta Gorda, Florida area. And then if we come up here towards Sarasota, not as much Longboat Key, really 3 to 6. Not really seeing those high totals of 9. But then as we get up here toward Tampa Bay, you can even see here, this is what I'm talking about. Some of these places potentially up to where you have the red, could see up to 9 feet. So here on the east side of Tampa, really downtown Tampa is looking more at the 3 to 6, possibly a few places up to 9, but definitely going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And then over here toward the west side of Tampa, a wide range of 3 to 6 as well. And then we get out here to the coast toward Lake Clearwater in that area, a lot of 3 feet or more, a few places with some 6 foot storm surge possible as well. And then from there kind of tapers off a little bit up toward Hudson, 3 to 6. And then it's kind of really very minimizes there by Spring Hill. So that's kind of what we're looking at on the West Coast, which is, a little bit better news here for places like the Big Bend region, probably be more in that 1 to 3 foot range for many of these areas. But the other thing that we need to keep an eye on is not just what's happening here on the West Coast, but also we have to keep an eye on what is the potential for the East Coast. I don't know if they've come out with, really looks like they might have a lot of 1 foot, maybe a few places 3 foot. And that will really depend on how strong Milton is when it comes off of the coast of, when it comes off of the east coast of Florida, how strong of a hurricane it is. Right now, it's still expected to be a Category 1 hurricane when it shoots off of the east coast of Florida, kind of south of the Cape Canaveral area is the current thinking. And let me kind of come back here to our cone here. So again, here's kind of the Cape Canaveral area. So by Thursday morning, it is off of the coast. So kind of where it comes off of on the north side of that remnant, you will have that onshore flow in these areas. So probably up toward, Daytona Beach, Cocoa Beach, even up toward Jacksonville, Florida area. We could still be talking about the potential for storm surge overnight Wednesday through early Thursday morning. So definitely going to be needing to keep an eye on that potential hazard as well. Now, taking a look at the wind history, you can see here, even just in the past 24 hours, starting to see this wind field for Milton is starting to grow as well. Now, let's kind of take a look back here. So, not a whole lot. You can see the wind radii by quadrant, 64 knot wind radii. So, most of the winds right now, those hurricane force winds, are interestingly enough on the south and southeast side of the storm. But again, as that wraps up, those winds will start seeing those shift to the southeast and then the northeast side. Typically, that'll become our dominant storm system. Now, the models. Let's talk about the models here real quick because this is important. So let's take a look at this. We've got a couple things we want to look at. So obviously, this is where our center of low pressure is right now here for Milton in the southwestern Caribbean. But as we go forward in time here are our model track guidance. So again, there are a good number of models that are bringing it north of Tampa, but a lot of them now are to the Tampa Bay area and just south of Tampa, but closer to the Fort Myers area and Punta Gorda, and closer to that area. Now, will this change? It could change, yes, but we are seeing less of those models kind of bringing it up toward the Big Bend region of Florida. Here are exactly what I'm talking about. There's really only two models now, two outliers, we should say, that are kind of bringing it over and then trying to shoot it north toward the Florida Panhandle, which is why we still have that cone of uncertainty all the way here up into the Big Bend region, because again, you can see here really all of the west coast of Florida, even down here toward Naples, there's the potential that it could go toward that area. So really anyone on the west coast needs to be making your hurricane preparations at this time as Milton continues to move off to the east right now. So continue to move off to the east, then kind of starts making that curve. It's going to be interesting to see how close does it get here to the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, because if it does kind of take some of these southerly modeled tracks, it could really brush right up against the coast, and that would, in a sense, disturb that rapid intensification phase if we see it have any sort of land interaction with the northern coast of Yucatan, which would be good news for our friends in Florida. If it goes on a more northerly track, north of this black line, then it'll be further away from the coast of Yucatan, less impacts, and really wouldn't have much of an issue at all making that rapid intensification, which is more what we are expecting to see with Milton. And we can see here with the models, now a number of them do rapidly bring it up into that Category 4 hurricane. Now even seeing a few of them do bring it up to Category 5 status as well. Now at landfall, which is expected to be somewhere here between the 60 and 72 hour mark. You can see here most of those, even these that do bring it up to Category 5, by the time it's approaching Florida, we're going to start to seeing that weakening trend, and that was going back to that wind shear that I was talking about earlier. And if we look at our, come back here, and let's look at our, there's our infrared. Let's go to our water vapor. And let's go on a more regional view. So you can see here, this is that front that's been kind of moving through that inner front. And we can see a lot of dry air up here around Louisiana. This is going to slide off, continue drifting off to the east, kind of over the Florida Panhandle. And once Milton kind of gets up here in this area, it's going to be interesting to see how it interacts with this dry air. If it kind of pulls in some of this dry air and wind shear that we will see it interact with before landfall, that could lead to that weakening trend, which is something that the models are picking up here on as it approaches, kind of seeing that sharp decline. Obviously, that's going through landfall, crossing the state. But again, a lot of them keep it as a hurricane really all across the state, all the way out through 96 hours, even out to till it gets out back over the Atlantic Ocean. So, but really interesting. We are seeing a few of these models now bringing it, hitting Category 5 status before making landfall. And, you know, there is the potential that it could maintain that all the way through that 60-hour mark. I don't think it would make landfall as a Category 5, but definitely the potential for it to make landfall as a Category 4 is not out of the question here that we're seeing around the 72-hour mark. High-end Category 3 definitely seems very, very likely that it would be at least a Category 3 and potentially a Category 4 hurricane at landfall. So really, again, folks in the west coast of Florida, really all of Florida, not just west coast. West coast of Florida, this is what I'm going to say for my west coast friends. You guys in the west coast of Florida need to have everything prepared, locked down, ready to go by Monday night. Because Tuesday, you guys are going to start seeing those tropical storm conditions affecting your area as early as Tuesday morning into Tuesday afternoon. And then Wednesday, throughout the day, will be where those hurricane conditions will be going across Florida. And then especially by Wednesday afternoon through Wednesday evening into the first part of Thursday morning. If you're on the east coast of Florida, it'll be a little bit, you know, about 12 to 24 hours delayed for you. So really the east coast of Florida needs to have things wrapped up by Tuesday morning at the latest, I would say. And I know there are a lot of evacuations that are going to be underway. And I did want to take a look at kind of see what the latest on Florida evacuations for this are. Because I know there are some evacuations that are being issued by Governor Ron DeSantis. All right, so here we go. These are the latest evacuation orders for Florida. So we can see here, Baker County is under a voluntary evacuation order. Charlotte County is under a mandatory evacuation order. Citrus County is mandatory. Dixie County has information order. Franklin County, Florida, mandatory evacuations. Gadsden County right now, just current voluntary evacuations. Gulf County, mandatory. And this is where it's important to know what county you're in. Hillsborough County, mandatory evacuation order. And then the order was lifted. So here's kind of where we're at. This is great. This is a great map. I wish I could make it bigger. You know what, here we go. Give me a second. We'll just kind of make this page bigger. There we go. So you can see here, Pinellas County is under a mandatory evacuation order. Hillsborough County, the blue is just information. So right now the only mandatory evacuation here is in Pinellas County that we're seeing right now. That is pretty great. So I think this is just a running list. Yeah, so it had been lifted. And then they sent out some information. So I'm going to drop a link to this in our video description for you guys, so you'll have that available as well. Useful evacuation order information there. So again, just to recap kind of where we've been at this afternoon. Milton, now a Category 1 hurricane, expected to intensify rapidly into a major hurricane by tomorrow, potentially as early as tomorrow morning. It could peak up to a Category 4 hurricane. Could potentially, if it stays far enough away from land of the Yucatan, we could see it even potentially reach Category 5 hurricane status briefly. Then it'll be all eyes on the west coast of Florida, and also all eyes on the potential for wind shear interaction as it approaches. How much interaction does it get from any wind shear and dry air infiltration as it makes approach to the west coast of Florida? That could weaken Hurricane Milton slightly before it makes landfall across the west coast of Florida. And again, this is the latest forecast cone issued by the National Hurricane Center that we can see. So we are expecting landfall probably early Wednesday afternoon. So this is 7 a.m. on Wednesday, still offshore. So landfall currently thinking maybe around the 1 o'clock or so time frame for Milton. Now I do want to take a look at a couple models real quick just to kind of see the latest that we've seen. So we're going to start with the H-Wharf model here for Milton. And again, this is the 12Z model, so this is the latest model that has kind of come out. So let's just kind of step it forward through time. We see that rapid intensification take place by tomorrow down to 947. There is the northern coast of Yucatan, 937. And then continuing to drop down to 929 by Tuesday. And then that's exactly what I'm talking about. So it gets down to about 928 late Tuesday into early Wednesday. And then we're going to see a slight weakening. It kind of goes up 930, 933 as it approaches the west coast of Florida. 940 still a very formidable major hurricane. And then we see it kind of re-intensify, so potentially a eye wall replacement cycle there, back down to 935 by Wednesday. 934, here's Tampa. And we'll notice too the size, how it's growing in size, and that's what I was talking about. The interaction that Milton could have with any wind shear could potentially weaken it, but not only would it weaken it, it would also kind of stretch it out, and it would make it a bigger storm, which is concerning, which obviously with a bigger storm, that would lead to more widespread impacts, a much wider area of coastline. And that's why we never focus right on where the center of the storm is, because look how big this is. I mean, we're talking really all the way from Crystal River here on Wednesday evening, really all the way down past Fort Myers, Punta Gorda area here on the southern side as it approaches. And this is Wednesday evening. You can see that band, and that's going to be another threat. We are going to have a tornado threat here with Milton, with these outer bands. You can see a lot of these supercellular type storms kind of feeding in off of the Gulf of Mexico here across the Fort Myers and Punta Gorda region. So here's Punta Gorda up here, and Fort Myers kind of right down here. And really that intense heavy rainfall expected for much of the Florida Peninsula. We're talking 7 to 10 inches potentially. Higher amounts locally, definitely not out of the question across portions of Central Florida as Milton moves across. And then again, that tornado threat overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. This is the H-Wharf, a little bit slower, bringing it in more Wednesday evening. And again, all these storms here with tornadic potential. And then here's the eye wall kind of coming in. And that one's still kind of, again, taking it on the north side of Tampa Bay, coming in here closer to the Crystal River area. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. That's one model. Again, we have to look at multiple models, right? So let's look at the HMON. Let's see what the HMON is showing us this afternoon. So here's the HMON, gets it down to 928. Here's Tampa Bay. This is Wednesday morning. And then the HMON, again, 942. So it does weaken it. 960. Again, the HMON really has the wind shear kind of really throwing this thing for a loop, especially on the southern side here. Kind of dries it out very interestingly. Wednesday evening, 967. Very, a much more disorganized Milton is what the HMON is showing. And then basically coming in Tampa Bay around midnight on Wednesday at 973. So, I mean, if this were to verify, that would be a fantastic solution where that wind shear really disrupts the circulation of Milton and brings it in much weaker, right? So that's another model. That's the HMON model. Now let's look at the HAFS-A model. Right? So what's the HAFS-A model got? The HAFS-A model, same time, again, showing a little bit more disturbance than we were seeing yesterday and bringing it in still as a hurricane, still as a potential major hurricane, 956. So that's definitely a major hurricane here just on the north side of Tampa, up here near Hillsborough County in that area, late Wednesday night. 6 Thursday, so yeah, that's basically right around a little after midnight on Wednesday coming in, right? So that's another model. And then if we look at the HAFS-B model, let's see what the HAFS-B model is showing us. HAFS-B model a little bit further south, about the same pressure, 956. So you can really see when you start kind of comparing all these different models, you know, the H-Wharf model was showing us, you know, at that time, a much stronger hurricane. Some of these other models, you know, showing us not as strong of a hurricane in the same region. Let's take a look at the GFS model, right? GFS model at that time has it much further inland, right? Up here. So again, there is still this model disagreement between the HMON, the HAFS-S, the HAFS-B, the GFS. Let's take a look at the Euro. Take a look at the Euro. Let's see where the Euro has it. So the Euro has it down here, again, south of Tampa Bay, which is kind of more what the National Hurricane Center current trajectory is, bringing it down here on just south of Tampa. But again, still 984. So a lot of these models, and this is going to be something we're going to have to watch really over the course of the next day or two, is to see what is the interaction going to be like for Milton as it approaches the west coast of Florida. You know, there are, again, models do bring it up to a Category 5, but by the time it gets to landfall, I do think that there is a good chance that we could see a weakening, which would be great for impacts across Florida. But again, right now here, this time, 3:30 Sunday afternoon, a lot can still change, just like we've even seen change in the past 24 hours. So just kind of recapping what I think is going to happen as of what I've seen here today is a couple things. We do expect rapid intensification to happen, assuming that Hurricane Milton does not make any sort of land interaction with the northern coast of Yucatan. We're going to have to continue to watch here these next 12, 24 hours or so to see if that east-southeastward movement, that east-southeast drifting movement continues at all, or do we start to see it really kind of get itself together and start moving east? If we see it move east earlier, then the chances of any land interaction are going to go down, and therefore the chances of a rapid intensification cycle or multiple rapid intensification cycles will be likely to occur, and we'll likely see Milton reach potentially major hurricane strength as early as tomorrow, late morning, early afternoon potentially. If we see that drifting east-southeastward movement that the National Hurricane Center discussed in their discussion here, and just so you guys can see this, I want you guys to see this because I think a lot of people don't actually necessarily read these discussions. So I do want to take a minute to go over this discussion with you for Milton because I think it's kind of important. So if you come to the National Hurricane Center website here, you'll see all these different graphics, which are fantastic. The key messages of Milton, which is what we were really just talking about, that it is still definitely too soon for us to be able to specify what the exact magnitude, location of where the greatest impacts are going to be. But what we do see is life-threatening storm surge, significant hurricane force winds, and huge rainfall potential for aerial river flooding, urban flooding. All of those are increasing for the region. But if we come up here, if you click on discussion, right? This is what I was talking about. This is the technical discussion that the National Hurricane Center puts out. And what do we see here? This is what I was talking about. So national hurricane hunters are currently out there, right? So they saw pressure down to 991 and 500 millibar low-level winds of 65 knots, which supports that hurricane strength status, right? And by the time it gets down to service, they're at about 55 knots, which is what they set the initial intensity at. Now, the fixes from the aircraft, what happened? It indicates that Milton is south of the previously anticipated and has been moving east-southeastward, right? And that's, we can see that. If we look at the satellite imagery here, you can see it actually is, here's the center here, and it slowly is, not very much, but it is actually just slightly drifting off to the east-southeast, right? So that's what the National Hurricane Center was saying, right? So Milton is forecast to move a little south of due east today in westerly flow from that shortwave trough over the northern Gulf of Mexico. This guy right here, right? Here's the little shortwave trough. So that's kind of what is nudging Milton a little bit off to the east-southeast. So the storm should then turn northeastward and accelerate. How fast that acceleration is going to be important on Tuesday and Wednesday toward the Florida peninsula. So if we have a faster acceleration speed, that is going to mean less duration of impacts across portions of the Florida peninsula. If we have slower acceleration speed, or for some reason it interacts with that windshield and slows down close to the coast, then that would be longer duration, higher significant impacts across portions of the west coast of Florida, inland Florida, as well as the east coast of Florida. So we've already seen Mexican government issued a tropical storm warning for the Yucatan Peninsula. And this is important. It should be noted that the average National Hurricane Center track at day 3 is 100 miles, right? The track error. And that is why when we look at our forecast cone, right? Look how wide it is. It's literally, here's the cone up to here, all the way down to here. So, I mean, you think 100 mile by day 3, it could be up here on the northern side of the cone, or it could be all the way down here on the southern side of the cone. So this just goes to show you that the error is still very uncertain. Our model blends are still very much all over the place, right? And I'll show you that again here with Milton. You can see here, look at the spread of the models. Really follows exactly where they have the cone. Anywhere along the west coast of Florida, really, from Cedar Key south, I would say, is still fair game for a landfalling major hurricane. So if you're in these areas, you have friends in these areas, definitely reach out to them today. Let them know, hey, I have a lot of friends that are in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida. That's where I went to college at. I have friends in Plant City, Florida, Orlando, Florida. I've got family down there. So I've reached out to them, let them know, hey, this is kind of what we're seeing. It does look like it is going to be a fairly quick mover, again, which is good as far as wind impacts go. You won't have 12 to 24 hours of hurricane force winds over a given location, which is positive. But regardless, you have to think of all of the debris and damage that's been left over already from last week from Helene. A lot of that is still out just sitting on the side of the roads, right? And if we have hurricane force winds, that's going to loft those pieces of debris that are still left, and that's going to make those flying projectiles. So, I mean, absolutely dangerous situation there for much of the west coast of Florida. Still trying to recover from Helene, and now we're just a few days away from another likely major hurricane landfall somewhere along the west coast of Florida. So, but that's kind of the latest that we have. I'll probably do another live stream with all of you guys later this evening. Probably after the 8 p.m. update, we'll hop back on here. So be sure, if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification so you'll get notified when we go live. I try and schedule them so you guys can get notified. Also, check in on our Facebook page, facebook.com/extreme weather videos. We'll post the link to the live stream on there in case you're not on YouTube. You can check over there as well. And we'll be trying to provide continuous coverage on Wednesday. As this comes in. One of our team members actually is down there in Florida, so he'll probably be doing some broadcasting on Facebook as well. So, got a comment here. Yes, it is going to likely be a Category 4 hurricane, and we did talk about those evacuation zones earlier. Right now, Pinellas County is under a mandatory evacuation. Let me see if I can get that evacuation map here. Here we go. So this red county here, Pinellas County, under a mandatory evacuation. We'll have to keep an eye on Hillsborough County to see if they go mandatory. I think some of these counties kind of here further south will also, here we go. So Pinellas County mandatory evacuation. I think some of these counties here to the south potentially could also go mandatory evacuation as well. So Pasco County, these counties in blue are voluntary evacuations. Collier County here, Lee County. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye really over these next 24 hours. Make sure you guys are keeping up with local officials there in your area as far as evacuation orders go. But it is just really, really interesting to see. I think really these next 24 hours, seeing this flare up of convective activity. Let me get the true color. This flare up of intense activity there, I think that is going to really be be eye-opening what we're seeing. Let me come back here. I want to come get a little bit of a closer view. There you go. And this is really, you can see this right here. Look at this burst just in these last few frames of Milton. And that there is what we're going to be keeping an eye on, these huge bursts of convective energy. This is on the southeast side and south side of where that eye is trying to form here, which is basically right where my mouse tracker is here. And we'll really have to keep an eye to see how close does this get here to the northern coast of Yucatan. We did see that east-southeastward movement, but I think if we get more easterly movement, that's going to, again, allow this to rapidly intensify into a major hurricane. And we'll see how high is it going to go. You know, only time will tell. But again, thank you everyone for joining me here on the live stream. I'm going to leave you guys here with the satellite view of Hurricane Milton. And we'll be back here again later this evening. Be sure to like this video, share this video with a friend, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep each other safe if you are living in Florida. Let them know what's going on, and we'll catch you guys here again later this evening with another update here at Extreme Weather Videos. Thank you so much for tuning in.